Hello, welcome to Rise Up with Orion's podcast and Wellness Wednesday. Thank you so much for joining us for our popular demanded speaker that we have today. Missy Beavers is back. For those of you that are not familiar with her, I encourage you to look back at our previous podcast. She was with us back in January of this year talking about thyroid and Thyroid 101 and all the things that this little part of our body does for us. And so we're actually going to move into a similar topic, still connected, as you will soon learn, about the leaky gut. So just a quick introduction, Missy, if you don't mind. I'll introduce a little bit about you, and then hopefully people will get the rest. But Missy was diagnosed with Hashimoto's disease at the age of 8. She gained significant amount of weight, even after doing exactly what her doctor said, and she was getting no answers. So she really took it into her own hands, got a degree in nutrition, even bought her own health food store to attempt to solve the issues. And through trial and error, some testing, she found the root causes of the problems. And she's really a whole new woman, has completely transformed her life. And she is here to kind of bring joy and is honored to help other women do the same. And not just women, thank you for all the men that are part of our podcast, that hopefully can find some answers. Thank you, Missy, for being back. It's so great to see you again.
Yes, thanks for having me back. It's so fun to be among friends. And today we're going to talk about poop.
Oh, you know what? And there's really nothing better. I really want to start this out, and I will be completely transparent. It was probably about 10 years ago with Orion. I was in New York. We were doing our biometric health assessments on a company there, and I was going over scores with a young lady, and she said, well, let's talk about leaky gut. And I pumped the brakes. I was like, first of all, I have no idea what that is. Second of all, that sounds like the most disgusting thing in the entire world. So it was one of those where I had no answers 10 years ago, and this was 10 years ago, and there's so much more about it now, and I'm sure you're going to talk all about it. So we're talking about poop, and we're talking about what sounds disgusting, leaky gut. So Missy, what is this? What are we talking about?
Yes, thank you so much. And I appreciate that personal experience too, Tara, because I've been in the health space like you for, 18 years now. And leaky gut was not a term until just, the last few years. And I feel like now it's a term that we've all at least heard, and it does
Mhm.
sound disgusting. So let's clarify what it is and what it isn't and let's talk through it. So those of you that are here, like Tara said, please drop questions as we chat because it's so fun to answer these. But I want to start by talking about what the gut is. It is a long tube. That's what it is. It's like a garden hose. Starts at your mouth, ends at your butt. And the goal of this tube is to push food through it and to absorb nutrition, vitamins and minerals and proteins and fats and carbs. The whole goal is to keep us alive, right? Now, we're going to talk mainly about the small intestines today. That is where we absorb the bulk of our nutrition. And that sits in this picture that Tara has on the screen. If you can see it, it sits kind of right there below that red stomach. It's that big, massive garden hose. And it is, prepare your brain, Tara, it blows my mind every time I share this. It's 23 feet long. So if you have ever stood next to a semi truck, you can imagine your insides
Mhm.
are that long. Isn't that boggling? And that's just a small intestine.
Yes, and all jumbled up in there too. This is no nicely placed garden hose too. It is
No.
all in there.
And I don't know if you're like me, I like genetically cannot roll up a garden hose. Like it's gonna end up in a
Right?
jumbled.
Our bodies can't either.
Yeah, no. So it's all wrapped up inside of us. It's beautifully placed. It's not like Missy trying to roll a garden hose and then just kicking it, to the side. So it's inside of us, and its job is to absorb nutrients. Now, imagine on the inside of that garden hose the most amazing 1970s shag carpeting. We've all seen that, right? Grandma had that at her house. It was usually orange or some weird avocado color. So that garden hose is covered with carpeting on the inside. And that carpet is where we absorb our nutrients, which, to use the carpet analogy, is kind of what happens with the same thing with the carpet. All the stuff falls down into the shag,
Mhm.
and then it just lives there forever. So here we have this
Yeah.
tube, we have the shag carpeting, and we eat our food, and our body and the enzymes, they break down the food into tiny little particles, and then it goes through the little shag carpeting out into the bloodstream, and we feel amazing and we function and our hair looks good and we have energy and we poop every day and maybe multiple times a day and we don't scream at our spouses and our kids and we're just very kind, pleasant people. Now that's not happening.
Yeah, I was going to say, how many of those things didn't happen this morning for anybody? I know
Yeah.
there might be a couple that didn't happen for me there.
Yes, it's not happening for many of us, and there are a lot of reasons why. So the main reasons that we're seeing leaky gut on the rise is because of our food supply. Unfortunately, it is very toxic. And I know I don't have to convince a lot of people of this. We know that food goes through heavy manufacturing processes. They put preservatives in them, and the preservatives, of course, help the food stay good for a long time, but they tear apart that sweet little shag carpeting. Medications will do it. Birth control is one of the biggest, most loudest offenders of that. A lot of women don't know that. Antibiotics, which are prescribed just willy-nilly. I mean, they're getting a little bit more careful with prescribing antibiotics. I've been seeing this in recent years. The antibiotics will cause those sweet little carpet fingers to be offended or to open up. So those of you that can see me, I'm pulling my fingers apart. So the shag carpeting is getting wider, or we'll just end up getting these little leaks or holes or tears in the carpet. And now I'm giving what? Is that the I love you?
Well, it is, but I'm not sure. You may want to hold up a different finger for what's happening right now.
Yeah. For those listening, I'm holding up my pinky, first finger, and thumb. So we've got a gap here between the two fingers. So that's what's happening in the gut. We're having these lifestyle choices, potentially medications, environmental factors. If you look at the handout I provided, it gives a list of things that can irritate the gut lining and cause these problems. So it's the equivalent of me going to your yard with a nail and poking holes in your garden hose. I'm just going down the hose, I'm poking all these holes. And then what happens when you turn on the garden hose? It leaks. So using the garden hose analogy, the same thing happens inside your gut. You've got this small intestines with its job to keep the food inside the hose. It's now got these leaks from the things we described, medications, stress, environmental food, all the things. Underlying infections as well, things like yeast and mold and bacteria, they will poke holes in that lining. So now you're eating your food, and your food is not supposed to escape the tube before it's digested small enough. So if you've got a hole, the food will get out of that hole. And we're going to talk specifically about gluten right now because gluten is loud in the media. It's on the packaging. People are hearing about gluten. We often think it's a fad. But let's talk about it for 1 second about why so many people are reacting. So if you've got a hole in your garden hose and you eat gluten is the protein in bread and barley and flours and things like that. So if you eat gluten is supposed to get digested really microscopically small before it gets absorbed through the shag carpeting. Well, if you got a big old hole in your carpet, the whole protein is going to get out of the small intestines. It's going to leak through your garden hose out into your gut. And this is where the bulk of our immune cells are produced. So this is a really mind-boggling fact that I love to share. We talk about the immune system all the time. We talk about how we have a strong immune system or a weak immune system, or I catch every bug. What we don't really know is where the immune system is. Tara, where's your immune system?
Oh my gosh, it's throughout your whole entire body.
It's everywhere, right? It's everywhere, and that's true. But the thing that we need to remember is that 80% of our immune cells are made in the gut. So back to your picture that you have on the screen, Tara, the bulk of the immune cells are made right there below that red stomach. And that's where we've got a whole bunch of lymphatic tissue that produces these white blood cells, produces these immune cells. So if you have a leak in your garden hose and you send out food that's not digested, well, look out, your immune system is going to flip out. And it's because the immune system has one job, and it's to decide what is you and what is not you. So this is so cool if you get strep. Strep gets into your body says, oh, that's not Missy. So your immune system kills strep. Yay! That's what it was created to do. Now, when it comes to gluten, things get a little messy. So we have gluten that got out of the garden hose. It's in the immune producing space. Your immune system's like, oh, that's not Missy. So it goes to work. It makes its antibodies, right? It's going to do its job. So it starts killing the gluten. Now, the problem with gluten is it looks very similar to the thyroid hormone. So a immune system doing the right thing will kill all the gluten, and then it's going to send out its little cops to go check all the alleys to make sure there's no more gluten hiding in people's trash cans, right? Well, then it sees the thyroid hormone and it says, oh, you. And then it starts killing the thyroid hormones because it's the antibodies mistakenly think it's gluten. So what happens at this point is we demonize gluten. Gluten's bad. It has to go. Bad, bad, gluten, bad. So we pull gluten out of our diets and we feel better. Wow. Okay. We carry on with no gluten forever. However, nobody came through with the quick seal to fix up the gut, right? There's still the leaks in the gut. The only thing that changed is we took out the things that were leaking out.
Wow. Yes. Oh my gosh. So many of those things that you're talking about, I'm resonating with. And I want to circle back to kind of what you said at the beginning. Because talking about poop and irritability and swelling and all of the things that are happening. So I'll bet a lot of people are going, okay, so how do I know if I have this? What is your sense on that? Is this a self-diagnosed based on some of the symptoms you talked about? But how do people know if they have this, problem with their garden hose?
Thank you for saying that. In the nutrition world and the medical world, it's often complained that people diagnose themselves, right? That they're like, oh, everyone says they have leaky gut. And there's not a lot of specific diagnostic testing for this, and that's part of the reason why. If there's not a diagnostic test, then people are just going to say, I have all the symptoms, and here's what I'm dealing with.
Yes.
But
Dr. Google, it is.
Yeah, exactly. Dr. Google diagnosed me. I want to point out that one of the things we frequently see is people will say, well, I can't have leaky gut because my digestion's fine. Right?
I poop every day. It's normal. No big deal.
I poop every day. I've never had a problem pooping. I don't have gas. I don't have diarrhea. It's fine. Sure.
Right.
We hear that a lot. So if you have other things going on, like I just explained, specifically if you have any autoimmune conditions, so if you have any diagnoses like Hashimoto's I just mentioned, or Graves', or if you deal with psoriasis, or you have any type of gut-related things, those can be autoimmune. There's so many autoimmune diseases. But if there's autoimmune, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, things like that, we immediately suspect the gut, because like I said, 80% of the immune cells are made there. Other places though, if you've got stuff going on with your brain, if you're having depression or you're having issues with anxiety and brain fog, that goes back to the gut. It can indicate that you're not absorbing the nutrients that you need to make your neurotransmitters. If you're having issues with your skin, 100% we got to check the gut, because again, you might not be absorbing, or your body is pushing out the toxins through your skin, which happens when you are toxic overload. If you're taking medications like I explained, if you're on birth control or hormone replacement, or you're taking blood pressure meds or statins or anything, any type of prescription medication, they are generally offensive to the gut. So it's good to question, how is the integrity of my gut? So truly for me, I believe that all disease begins in the gut. And I did not make that up. That was said by Hippocrates 2,500 years ago. So for me, if there's any type of dis-ease in the body, if you're not at ease in your body, we got to look into the gut. We got to see what's going on there, because it is the storehouse of all of our nutrition. It's the ground zero of our basic health.
Would you say that doctors are more aware of that now than in the past? Or is the gut still kind of this like voodoo unknown, that's not one of the first things that they point to?
I love that question. I don't like to doctor shame. And I have a master's in nutrition. So in nutrition, this of course is talked to the point where we're bored with it, right? Like it's we talk and talk and talk, and leaky gut is preached all the time. But the thing about doctors is they are only required to take one class in nutrition. So the course that they take is drink water and move your body, and they're still teaching the food pyramid in some cases, eat all your carbohydrates and limit your fats and moderate protein. They're teaching very old principles. So there's no judgment on the doctors for what they don't know. I don't judge on that for all. But like I said, it's a nutrition type education. So no, I'm not seeing this a lot in Western medicine. If your doctor is educated in education, hang on to that doctor. Nutrition, excuse me. If they're educated in education, definitely keep them. If they're educated in nutrition, they're a really good resource for marrying medicine with nutrition. But like I said, it's not, I don't fault them for that. It's just not something that's taught.
Yeah. So how do you fix this? You mentioned so many things, and I'm sure people are, doing tally marks. Yep, antibiotics, and yep, and cross that out. So where does one start? Maybe they're starting to know that some things are not as they should based on some of the different symptoms that you mentioned today. So where do we start? Or are we just starting with, a FODMAP diet, or just making a list of the things that are the offenders? So where do you suggest that we start with that?
I love that question. And thank you for bringing FODMAPs into the conversation because they show up a lot. The internet, as you know, is the wild, wild west of education. And now that we have said leaky gut, and now that you all have heard the term leaky gut, it's going to show up in your Facebook and Instagram feeds. So you're welcome for that. You're going to start seeing ads everywhere because, yes, they listen to us. So, yeah, you'll start seeing things about like do a paleo diet or a FODMAP or do keto or do all these different plans. And what I frequently see happen with clients is they will do keto, for example, is a good example. They'll do keto and they will feel great. Their gut will feel better. They will do awesome. They'll lose some weight. And then the second that they reintroduce carbs, all the weight comes back. And that is a really good indication that there probably is some leaky gut going on because the balance of bacteria is in the gut. It sounds like in that case, you've got some bad bugs that really love carbohydrates. And they're going to really thrive on those once you add them back in. So I want to share another mind-boggling fact before I answer your question. We're going to do a around the block answer. The thing we have to remember with the gut, and I might have shared this last time, Tara, so if you've heard it, just act surprised like you've never heard it again. It is this. There are 10 organisms to every one human cell. That is crazy. Did I share that with you last time?
Yes. Yes, you did. It may have been a personal phone call though that we discussed that. But anyways, yes, you did. But for those that are on the call today, hopefully their minds were just blown.
Hope that changed your life. Why does it matter? Well, because there are 10 organisms for every one human cell. So there are 10 bacteria, viruses, fungus, molds to every one cell of Missy, which means those of you that are sitting here listening today are literally listening to a bag of germs. This bag of germs is telling you about the gut. Now, what we know in research of the gut is that we want to have 8 favorable of those friends to 2 angry versions of those friends. And the bummer is for most of the US population, that's flipped. We have 2 really nice, kind bugs in the gut and 8 really angry teenagers. And that will contribute to the inflammation in the gut, to those holes in the carpet. It's all going to play a part in that. Just before I came in here this morning, Terry, I was in my backyard. This is a good analogy. I was in my backyard and there were hundreds of birds in the tree above my house, and I've never experienced this. So I was like, oh my goodness, they're so loud. Look how many are up there. What is going on? And then this giant black crow came and flew into the tree and everyone fled. They had to go, get out of here. We've seen this, right? We've seen it. So all the sweet little blackbirds that were singing their beautiful songs were gone. And we just had this big black angry crow. That is the equivalent of what happens in the gut. So when you have infections, when you have, like I was saying, medications or antibiotics will do that. They drive out all the good bugs, and then we're just left with this big black angry crow. So now he's making the decisions on what happens in the gut. And that means that you'll digest your carbohydrates differently. You'll gain weight easier. You'll be resistant to foods that weren't a problem before. So now you're doing this FODMAP diet and you feel better, but then you never can go back to eating the things you love again because you react every time.
Right.
So how do you fix it? That is the biggest and most loaded question. Step 1 for me is testing. And I recommend this for all of my clients. I have all of my clients start with urine testing. It's so simple. You pee in a cup, you freeze it, you mail it back to the company. We can see from that pee if there is mold in your gut, if there's yeast, if there's bacteria. We can see the balance of the bugs in your gut because those bugs produce little acids, and then the acids comes out in your urine, and then we can see from those acids, aha, he was here.
Right.
So we can see the balance of what's happening in the gut. I prefer that to guessing every single time, because
Mm-hmm.
I personally went through a decade of exactly that, trying every diet on the market, doing keto, doing paleo, doing AIP, trying FODMAPs, because I was having all of these gut issues and would temporarily feel better when I changed the food. So once we can find out what the underlying cause of the tears in the carpet are, we can address those. And then we can go through and do the quick seal, like I was saying, those commercials for the spray stuff that you can
Mm-hmm.
spray out of a sinking boat. It fixes the
Yeah.
boat. You can go through and you can quick seal, or you can provide nutrition for your gut. And that's things like, I like glutamine's great, aloe vera, slippery elm. There's all kinds of amazing supplements out there now that do seal the gut. But the step
Mm-hmm.
that most people miss is the testing. So, like I said, you're going to get a
Right.
lot of things on your social media now that are going to be products like that, because I even said the words. There'll be probiotics, there'll be gut healing supplements, and they can help. But if we don't find out what is eating up those fingers to begin with, or what's poking holes in the hose, you're fighting a losing
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think there's so many underlying causes of it as well. I know for my husband, he was diagnosed with celiacs, and it was one of those where, that was like, voila, we had that answer. It was a different kind of testing that he did. But again, that was so eye-opening for us, and the swelling in his gut. I mean, it was one of those where it's like, this less than 40-year-old man, looked like he always had a beer gut when he doesn't touch beer. And so it was one of those where over time, again, to heal that hose, for us, pulling gluten out was the answer for him, because
Yeah,
we knew what it was. And so again, his celiacs, I would assume, was causing leaky gut, which again, I've just never put those two words together because I thought it was so disgusting 10 years ago. But
amazing.
it
Yeah,
was one of those where, we have been able to heal that, just by, that was we didn't do a FODMAP, but we had that answer. And so again, I think a lot of people are going to want to experiment once their social media picks up and starts sending them all this stuff. But again, I think, as I said earlier, to pump the brakes, and not throw all these unknown things into your body without knowing the answer.
totally agree. And it's disappointing. It's so disappointing to, temporarily feel better and then backslide. And
Right.
to add to your story, Tara, I super appreciate that, because I also have celiac disease, and so does my son. And he's 6.
Mm-hmm.
He got diagnosed just before he was 2, through testing. But again, there would have been a lot of guessing going on. And the way that he's been most impacted, and I want to put a ditty in for this because a lot of people don't realize this, but your dental health is a complete reflection of your gut. So if you're having a lot of cavities,
Mm-hmm.
or you're having receding gums, or your enamel is falling off and your teeth are falling apart, that was and is still true for my son, bless his heart, because he's not absorbing the minerals from his gut based on
Mm-hmm.
inflammation. And also because the balance of those bacteria, like I said, the 8 good bugs to 2 bad bugs, they program
Right.
the acidity in your body. So if you've got too many bad bugs, you're going to be very acidic. That does eat up the enamel in your teeth, and you're going to have a lot of dental problems.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we rarely think about the beginning of that tube that you just talked about. But again, it's the very beginning. So we should take that whole tube into consideration. So that's a fantastic thing to think about as well, especially for those that have dental insurance and may never use it. So might as well
Agreed.
use it. Exactly. Um, so how long does it take? So we have a question that came in. There's kind of a twofold question. One of which is someone who is on H1 and H2 blockers for mast cell
Yeah.
reactions. Is it possible to heal the gut when that is going on? And if so, for all of us, how long does it heal? How long does it take to heal the gut? So first question first.
I am so thrilled somebody brought up histamines. Thank you, friend, for this question. So yes, the gut, as we talked about, is supposed to have this happy balance of bacteria. There are some really mean, nasty bugs in the gut that will produce histamines. Fungi will do this, mold can do this, bacteria can do this. So they produce histamines in the gut. Well, histamines can ramp up your stomach acid production. So now you have acid reflux. Now you're having a burning esophagus. You can even get a corroded esophagus. I see this happen with clients. So the doctors give you H1, H2 blockers. So that means histamine 1, histamine 2. It's different types of histamines. It takes care of the symptom, absolutely. The acid reflux will go away. However, the problem with these blockers are they also block your acid, which that's what we wanted to do because we're having this nasty
Mm-hmm.
symptom. However, if you don't have enough stomach acid, that is our first step in digestion. So if you don't have enough stomach acid in the stomach, and Tara's taken the picture away, but remember that glowing red stomach? We need to have stomach acid there to break apart the food, to start breaking apart the bonds, so that when it goes into the small intestine, it's at a point where it can start being digested. So the problem with acid blockers of any kind, it could be the H1H2, it also could be, PPIs, omeprazole, Pepcid, things like that. Anything that is blocking acid is going to put your food into your intestines in a state that is not digested enough. That
Yeah.
alone can cause some major leaks in the gut. So in a picture like
Yeah.
this, and this is very common, by the way, and thank you to whoever asked this question. I see it happen with clients every day. You're put on something to treat the symptom, but then the problem perpetuates because the food not being ready for digestion creates more inflammation in the gut. We already know that there's an imbalance of good and bad bugs, and we know that they're creating histamines. Nothing is telling them to stop. So they're going to keep being complete jerks in your gut until we can test and find out what's going on and address those underlying causes. And that can be done with specific probiotics. It can be done with specific botanicals, herbal supplements. Once we know who the root offender
Yeah.
is.
Absolutely. What about any tips or tricks for, we often hear about this, is bile reflux? Is that similar to, some of those things that you just mentioned?
Yeah, so with bile is how we clean garbage out of the gut. And anyone
Mm-hmm.
who is dealing with bile reflux or with bile issues, pretty sure they got crap going on their gut and imbalances.
Yeah.
So what happens is our liver, of course, is filtering things out of the body, but as it filters those things that are toxic and chemically laden, which may have leaked out of the gut, it puts them into the bile, and then the bile is supposed to go into the gut, and then it's used to digest our fats, and then at the end of the gut, when it's all used up, it gets reabsorbed. So if there are bile issues, either production or reflux or stones or anything related to bile issues, we've got to take a look in your gut, because that is a reflection of probably and potentially and most likely pathogen overload.
Right, absolutely. So a lot of those things that you're talking about, circling back to the question that I posed a little bit earlier, and it does not sound like it is the same for everyone on how long it takes to heal
Oh, yes,
when
thank
there's
you.
issues.
That's my favorite thing to answer because there is so much hope. Oh, I love hope. Hope's my favorite thing.
Yeah.
So remember
Yeah.
these
Oh,
little,
we all need, we
we
as need
love
as
hope,
much of
we
that
love
as we
it.
can get.
Okay, I pulled
Yeah.
out my shag carpeting. For those of you who are listening, I've got all my fingers on deck now. So that shag carpeting in your gut, my favorite research of it, they are laying down a protective layer of mucus over your body, is doing this, is laying a protective layer of mucus around those shag carpeting every single second. So Tara, right now you're healing. Right now I'm healing. The thing about the gut
Mhm.
that's so cool, you can turn this around in 24 hours. 24 hours. So the research shows that once we can nail the problem and we can start effectively addressing it,
Mhm.
things turn around quickly and you can have an entire new gut lining in 3 days. This is why I love testing, first of all, but I also love working in the gut
Yeah.
because it regenerates so quickly and we can see improvements really quickly. And in my own case, when I,
Yeah.
like Tara was saying, I had Hashimoto's for years. I dealt with all of these really annoying, nasty symptoms. One of my biggest symptoms was air hunger. And it's a sensation like you can't get a deep breath in. It's like someone sitting on your chest. It's often misdiagnosed as anxiety. But when I discovered for my gut, I had a lot of strep. And when we started addressing that, I was like 3 days in and I was like, oh my goodness, I can breathe. Like, this is incredible. And it's because my immune system finally got to take a breath. My immune system was
Yeah.
like, oh, good, we're not fighting that today, which allowed my
Right.
adrenals to calm down, allowed me to breathe, allowed my thyroid to calm down. So it put the fire out everywhere else from an infection in the gut.
Right. Well, I mean, I even think about stress and anxiety and panic and all of those things. And many of us, I think, have experienced so much more of this over the last couple of years. Hopefully, it's getting better for some of us. But again, stress, not even something that we're putting in our mouths, can cause this. True?
Oh my goodness. I love that you just said that. So yeah, one of my
Yeah.
favorite research studies and another mind-boggling fact. Let's start there. I love mind-boggling facts. This one blows my mind because when we are in utero, our brain and our gut are made from the same tissue. So we form
Mm.
a little brain in our head and then we form the small intestines in the gut. And they are identical when we're in utero. So it's this really neuron rich tissue. And that's why the gut is often called the second brain, because it's literally the same tissue. Now we have the nervous system that communicates between the brain and the gut and the gut and the brain. So what we know now is, like I just said, the brain, if there's stress in the brain, it will impact the gut. If there's stress in the gut, it will impact the brain. So they communicate back and forth. Now, this was put into a research study, and there's so many studies happening right now about this, and I love this stuff because I am such a fan of mindset work and managing our thoughts in order to help our gut function better. But in this study, they had, this was out of the UK, they had participants, they tested their stool to look at the bugs in the stool. So they did of course, a control study of here's what their poop looked like. Then that was them on a relaxed state. Total relaxed state. They look at their poop. This is what their baseline looks like. Then they stress them out. I don't know what they told them. Maybe they told them
Sounds like a fun experiment.
I know. If it was my house, they would say, here's a new puppy.
Yeah.
Which recently happened. My husband brought us home a puppy without any conversation. So they're like, they stress out the participants. They check their stool 24 hours later. You wouldn't even believe it. All the good guys were gone. All the bad bugs had overgrown. And so they're doing more work in this area, but they've concluded that these sweet little bugs are impacted immediately and loudly, in the same sense that if a crow flies into a tree, it stresses all the birds out and they're gone. So if we have chronic and continual stress mental wise, which we all do, it's impossible to escape it. But if we have that going on consistently, it absolutely impacts the flora in our gut, the balance in the gut, the way our nervous system's communicating with our gut. So for me, working with clients, it's so important to include the mindset piece as well, and to learn how to recognize thoughts that are creating those really chaotic things in our gut and be able to change them and have the control up here, because that is something anyone can do right now to influence their gut.
Mm-hmm. Well, and there's no question, the majority of our webinars this year, as well as last in our podcast, something has always circled back to mental and emotional health. And so even those that join the podcast today thinking it's all food, it's all food, it's all food, the reality is it is always so much more than that. And
No,
we're
it's in your
so
head.
interconnected.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
was
she talked
laughing.
about the immune system and all the things.
And you'll often go to a doctor
Yeah.
and they'll be like, oh, it's all in your head. They're kind of right.
Yes, exactly. They might be onto something. Exactly. Well,
Yeah.
Missy, we're nearing the end of our time. There's so much information. Again, I would love for anyone to check out the show notes for the infographic that Missy shared. But Missy, I know you have your own website, which I would love for you to, let people know what that is for other questions. There were a couple we didn't get answered, so I'll send those over to you. But again, where can people see more of you and hear more of you from?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So if you head to missybeaverscoaching.com, you will see my website there. You can learn about, I specialize in thyroid health, but I do that through fixing the problems in the gut. So if this information resonates with you and you want to know more about the testing I offer and learn about my programs, you don't have to have a thyroid diagnosis in order to work with me. It is, of course, labeled and packaged that way, but I have sisters in the program that don't have a thyroid diagnosis and have some pretty intense leaky gut. So just know that I do only work with women at the moment. So apologies to men, because this is absolutely an issue for men as well. But Facebook and Instagram will be sending you all, just kidding. They'll be sending you all kinds of offers.
Sorry.
Sorry, men. Sorry for now. But for women and for men that love women, go to missybeaverscoaching.com, and there's all kinds of resources. And then you can watch my thyroid fast track class there that goes deeper into, like I said, it says thyroid, but it's the same discussion about the gut. It's a really good review of how the gut impacts the immune system. And then from there, you can book a call to chat with me or my team, and we can talk about testing and options to get you feeling great.
So great. And, for those that, are working with an Orion health coach as well, our health coaches are knowledgeable as well. If you've never wanted to breach this disgusting subject with your health coach, all always bring that up with your health coach as well. We've got, Missy on the back that I'm sure could, filter us some tips and tricks if we need them. But again, your health coach is also a great person. If you're a man and Missy isn't working with you right now, please access your Orion health coach, because we've got a great partner here within Missy. So thank you so much, Missy. I appreciate you being here again. We're so honored to have you twice in 1 year.
Yeah, so fun. And thank you, friends, for joining us. It was so nice to talk with you all.
Thank you. Have a great day.